They died, and nobody knew it. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but still, for every Jimi Hendrix or Kurt Cobain, there's a rock star who quietly died. You know, nobody even noticed. Nobody hit Twitter, nobody hit the streets with candles and RIP signs. So who were these rockers who went under the radar? You might be shocked to hear about some of these guys, once on top of the world and now gone without a trace. So it's kinda up to us to remember their legacy. So let's look at the rock stars you might not even know are dead. Before the service starts, if you enjoy our video, please click that thumbs up icon, it really helps our channel a ton. And subscribe to What Happened so you don't get left behind. Now, without further ado, let's pay our respects.
What happened?
Quiet Riot, multiple members. Although nothing Quiet Riot ever put out reached the heights of Come On Feel the Noise, the song was enough to keep the band chugging for 50 years. I guess one hit in every half century isn't too bad. But over those 50 years, the band raised enough hell to keep busy enough. And when I say raise hell, I'm not joking. The band got in so much trouble, even more than most 70s rockers. And nobody partied harder than the bassist Kelly Garni. So how much did Kelly drink? Well, when he had an urge to rob an establishment, he chose a bar instead of a bank. And instead of cleaning out the register, he just stole all the booze. One thing about Kelly, for some reason he just hated the singer Kevin DuBrow more than Homer hated Flanders.
Hates their stupid neighbor. He's Flanders and he's really, really lame.
More than Wile E. Coyote hated the Roadrunner. That's how much Kelly hated Kevin. He hated him so much that the night after he robbed that bar with the booze, he got drunk enough to hatch a plan to drive across town and kill Kevin. Luckily, he got pulled over for drunk driving before he could get there, and both survived. But Kevin sure didn't survive as a member of Quiet Riot. The band continued to perform in one form or another over the decades, even after all the original members quit or were fired. Now flash forward a few decades, and in 2007, Kevin DuBrow was found dead in his Vegas apartment. After intense speculation, the cause was found to be an OD on the white stuff. Then another decade and plus later, in 2020, the original drummer, Frankie Banali, died of cancer. And oddly enough, Kelly, the wildest of them all, is still kicking. I guess karma never heard of Kelly Garni. Eddie Money. Eddie Money might just be the most underrated star of the 1980s. I mean, sure, everybody knows the hits, 2 Tickets to Paradise,
2 tickets to paradise. Pack your bags and leave.
Baby Hold On, Take Me Home Tonight,
Take me home tonight. I don't wanna let you go till you see.
The guy really was a hit machine, but when the conversations come up about the best 80s stars, people tend to shortchange him. Well, no longer. If you mail me $500 right now, I'll make you an honorary member of the Eddie Money Fan Club. And hey, if anybody tells you this is a scam, just don't believe them. I mean, why'd you think the Eddie Money Fan Club would be free? Come on. All jokes aside, and yes, that was a joke. Eddie Money was born Eddie Mahoney in New York City, and he planned to follow the footsteps of his father, a police officer. But he dropped out of the academy after they wouldn't let him keep his long hair. And so he started doing what long-haired guys did, and he played music. When he started performing, he took the ah out of his name, you know, the AH, a reference to the fact that everybody called him Eddie No Money because he was constantly broke. Well, in 1968, Eddie moved to Berkeley, California, and almost immediately he got a record contract and put out a little song called 2 Tickets to Paradise. Now, the name Eddie Money wasn't a joke anymore. He was rolling in it. But as they say, more money, more problems, and the more famous he got, the wilder he got. And in 1980, Eddie OD'd, but he survived and had nerve damage that would leave him with a limp for the rest of his life. Thankfully, in 2001, he finally got sober. And in 2018, he showed off his sober life to the world with his reality show, Real Money. But sadly, Eddie Money passed away in 2019 from cancer. Or at least that was the official diagnosis. His family filed a wrongful death and medical malpractice lawsuit. And honestly, we may never know for sure what really happened to Eddie Money. Mark Hollis, Talk Talk. Before No Doubt and X made millions of dollars with It's My Life, there was the original Talk Talk version. I mean, talk about a classic. With its soaring synths and synthetic pounding beat, you could make a case that it's the most 80s song of all time. It's My Life made Talk Talk huge, and Mark Hollis was a huge part of it. With his small, dark sunglasses, he kinda looked like a bug that could certainly sing his head off.
It's real love. Don't you forget.
Feeling, Mark once said, has always been and always will be above technique. Yeah, that's what I tell my girlfriend when she says I did a bad job at the dishes, but she doesn't appreciate that very much. So Talk Talk. I mean, if they kept doing what they were doing, they could have gotten even bigger. But then the band decided, let's take all the hits we've been writing and then just do not that any more bad song now. And the band made weirder and weirder music and eventually faded into obscurity. Their last two albums are actually now recognized as classics, but at the time they were kinda panned. But who cared? Not Mark Hollis. The No Doubt cover made sure that he'd never have to work as a musician ever again. So he just didn't. He disappeared from public life to raise his kids. Nobody really heard anything from Mark Hollis until 2019 when he died of cancer at the age of 64. I guess for every rock star that parties hard and burns out early, there is a guy like Mark that plays his cards right and gets out while he can. Ricky Wilson, B-52s. Okay, the B-52s might have been the original weirdos of rock. You don't write a song like Rock Lobster unless you're a bit kooky. Oh, and I mean in a good way, of course. I dig the B-52s. They formed in 1976 in Athens. No, not that Athens. No, not even that Athens. Yep, we're talking Georgia. And Ricky Wilson, the guitarist, had known the drummer Keith Strickland since high school. As you might expect from the start, nothing about them was normal. They got their start playing wild college parties. I mean, how wild? Well, at one of them, they put a foot of popcorn on the floor, and then everybody just got naked, covered in oil, and rolled around in it. I do have a theory that that's why movie theater popcorn is so good. Soon enough, they began to drive up to New York to perform, and just like that, they were in the big leagues. In 1980, they were playing SNL. The band all moved into a house together to write their next album, but Ricky had a secret. He was suffering from AIDS. He didn't tell any of the other band members except for Keith. The reason? Well, he didn't want anybody to worry or fuss over him. But in 1985, the disease took his life. The band was devastated, and it would be 3 years until they would play together again. But they did make incredible music again, like Love Shack in 1989. Still though, it just wasn't the same without Ricky. Phil Lynott, Thin Lizzy. There's a million songs about heartbreak, but how many are there about the boys being back in town? Just one to my knowledge. And that's the classic tune by Thin Lizzy.
Down at Dino's Bar and Grill, the drink will flow and blood will spill.
The band scored its first hit with a cover of the classic Irish tune Whiskey in the Jar, but they soon carved out their own sound.
And his money, he was counting. I first produced.
And a huge part of that sound was their lead singer and frontman Phil Lynott. But it wasn't always that way. When Phil began performing, he was really shy. He'd kinda just stand off to the side, barely even looking at the audience, even though he was the lead singer. But Phil began to loosen up, and before long, he was one of the most energetic frontmen in music. In fact, when the band toured with Huey Lewis, Phil actually inspired Huey to put more pizzazz in his performance. But as Phil learned how to control a crowd, he started to lose control of his own life. He got hooked on hard drugs like H and quickly fell apart. In 1985, Phil Lynott collapsed at home. His mother, who had no idea about his drug use, found him. And Phil's wife had to tell her that her son was addicted to drugs, and he soon died of complications related to sepsis. Man, it's really sad when our heroes pass. So, did you already know about all of these rock stars' deaths? Were you surprised to learn any of these? Who was your favorite to listen to? And did we forget any other rock star who went under the radar when they passed? Well, please get down in the comments below and tell us who. Hell, we could always make a round 2. If you enjoyed our service, please click that thumbs up icon to help the video circulate. Subscribe to the channel and come back often so we can keep telling you what happened? Okay, that's a wrap. Let's blow out the candles.